Hi, I'm Georgiana at holisticlifehub. Today's episode it is about yoga, a pathway to infinity. There are very many definitions about yoga, and nowadays yoga is very popular, as you I'm sure have noticed. But I will not go through all these definitions, and some aspects I will have to point out before I start with a little bit more in detail presentation. So, yoga is a very complex system which existed for 5,000-6,000 years already, and it has been very popular recently. It has become very popular recently, and many people consider yoga as let's say kind of an exotic fitness program, but yoga is much more than that. So yoga it is a combination of physical training but also a lot of mental training, and not only this. Yoga is much more than that, and therefore today I choose to speak about the highest level in yoga. This is why I also call it a pathway to infinity. So, among the countless definitions and symbolical names that shed more light upon the profound significance of the yoga system, there is also that of the path of the divine infinite, or, as I said, the pathway to infinity. This suggests the fact that the ultimate purpose of yoga practice is the direct effective revelation of the divine reality. In other words, the realization of a continuous, conscious contact with the supreme primordial cause, which is God. You can call it whatever you want, because the reality behind the word is always the same. By expressing ourselves within, for example, the Christian terminology, we might say that yoga is a rapid method of conscious fusion with the supreme divine reality that was called the kingdom of God, or the kingdom of heavens. Aside from the fact that it exists a certain mysterious dimension, it also has a focal point in each of us. As a matter of fact, no matter how paradoxical it may seem, this fundamental experience cannot be placed anywhere in time as we ordinarily see it, a straight line with a sole direction from the past to the future, controlling a strictly material universe. For us, yoga can really be a spiritual experience which unfolds between time and the so-called non-time. The sacred moment in which every spiritual yoga experience happens is actually situated at the, let us call it, intersection of time and non-time, in this mysterious point where before and after are neutralized into the unique moment of now, or in other words, in a continuous present moment. As a matter of fact, this ineffable and mysterious now, which reveals the eternity for us, is the moment when we achieve the experience of the direct knowledge of the divine presence. For that matter, analogically speaking, our present existence can be compared to a cascade of sparks, each spark lasting a few seconds, and the cascade itself, it will last no more than a few moments. So the divine essential reality cannot be momentary or transient, because it's timeless, it is eternal. So from this perspective, we can dare to say that every man is essentially his own God. The feeling of divine presence lived in this mysterious time of a particular quality, it is a continuous present moment, and it has been felt and described by yogis and by the great sages of all spiritual traditions. The essential secret of spiritual accomplishment consists of truly understanding through direct experience that what we call God is actually the supreme unique consciousness. So, by reason of a divine logic, because God is the supreme unique consciousness, this consciousness is also the consciousness of every human being, the consciousness of each and every one of us. Consequently, every human being is essentially his or her own God, and is also a creator for himself, a keeper and a destroyer. Therefore, all that is necessary for our deliverance or our spiritual accomplishment must arise from our individual consciousness during our terrestrial existence. And this individual consciousness, following the pattern of the universal consciousness that we all call gods, or other words, which express the same reality, states constantly, I am. So, divine grace in this method is sufficient for a happy existence. This is essentially the same divine path that Lao Tse called Tao. The yogis also call it the path, but essentially it is the same aspect, becoming aware that our true identity is purely spiritual. Knowing these things, we can ask ourselves, how can we reach that unifying and continuous grip of consciousness that can actually secure our existentiality in this spiritual divine dimension? The yoga system is especially based on meditation, but of course not only. There are also a lot of other methods and practices. And if we are referring to the meditation, which is a true open gate toward the kingdom of divine grace, or we can call it the kingdom of heavens. This kingdom is not of this world, and because of that, in order for meditation to be truly efficient, it must elevate us, gradually taking us beyond this world, relieving us of all the false notions regarding what we call I. In this manner, we will detach ourselves from those faulty notions that we've had since our childhood and we've grown actually very fond of. If we lucidly and detachedly analyze ourselves, we notice that most often we stumble upon these false identifications with all kinds of ephemeral aspects that our ego assumes. We are incapable right now of assuming a more vast consciousness, limiting ourselves just to what we call my peace, my money, or my health, and so on. Most often, we are not aware that, in fact, all these are mere illusions. In reality, there is only God's peace, God's unified consciousness, a peace that transcends our ordinary power of understanding. And God's grace is actually sufficient for a truly happy existence. And we can also turn it from another angle. Without awakening the divine consciousness in ourselves, we really don't have anything. But in fact, whose is this peace and grace? It belongs to that supreme being whose eternal presence expresses in a radical simplicity through the words I am. For in reality, there is no other thing about one might say it exists except I am. All the claims of the false I, limited and transient, who is either happy or unhappy, living by his own erroneous relative criteria, must be completely eliminated. before becoming truly aware of our unique, real divine presence. The divine consciousness is the sovereign of our beings, and because of that, we are endowed with everything it consists of, or in other words, the entire universe is mirrored in our being in a potential form, which is actually a miraculous gift for us. So, if the consciousness of the divine presence in us is not awakened, we actually have nothing, even if momentarily we seem to be prosperous and having a lot of material things. Because of our current state is nothing but a mere ephemeral appearance, which can vary from one day to another, often leaving us powerless in the wake of apparently inexorable current passing events. And we, all of us, notice this many times. I'm sure it is nothing new for you, this ephemeral feeling that the things, the situations, the phenomena in our life, they are coming and going, nothing lasts forever. But if we are already discovered the inspiring manner in which we can be aware and connected to this limitless divine source, which is present in all of us, then nothing can take away this peace from us, no matter the external circumstances. We will never be deprived of this complete and pure happiness of our existence in the self. So complete yourself in mystery and silence. Spiritual guides often insist on the fact that this genuine inner search must be done in silence and in a state of mystery. Mystery is often indispensable because if we talk to our friends too early before awakening our divine nature, we risk losing this grace of the light of divine consciousness which dwells in us. And it is possible we won't be able to get it back in this existence. So when we start practicing yoga for revealing the self, and we, let's say, consider and treat yoga as this pathway to infinity, all the steps we take on it, it is better for ourselves to keep them somehow secret. We don't need to speak too soon with people around us about, for example, very elevated states of consciousness. We might experience different perceptions of the subtle worlds and so on, until they really crystallized and they are stable in us. So then when we speak, we will not lose the contact with that type of energy. When we truly become aware of our real identity, we will be genuinely capable of understanding the true nature of the message yoga is actually transmitting to us, while also understanding the reason behind it being called the way of the divine infinite. This path can be summed up by only one word: self, the self. In order to attract the sun, for example, let's take an analogy, the mirror only has to keep itself pure and clean. And consequently, it can reflect our supreme self. Therefore, any other limited and impure so-called self, to which we are often identified with, must be excluded from our mind. Our mental efforts cannot reach the state of spontaneity and authenticity, which are characteristic of the divine consciousness. Therefore, by comparing our mind to a mirror, we become aware that in fact, the mirror cannot do anything to attract the sun. It can just keep itself pure and clean. Hence, we might say that as soon as our mind is ready, the sun of the divine consciousness shall start to reflect in it. So from this perspective, we can also say that yoga in reality is as well an art of spiritual healing, because the gradual spiritual enlightenment dissolves all the material bonds, unifying people through the golden threads of self-realization. By practicing yoga, by realizing its immense value of helping us discover who we really are, imagine the deepest healing we can do is heal ourselves from the illusion of being separated, from the illusion of being a mere mortal, from the illusion of the ego. So yoga really is an art of spiritual healing. I hope that just a little bit things are more clear for you when about the highest level in yoga, which is the path to our divine nature, is the path to self-realization. And actually this is what yoga can offer us, much more than a program of physical fitness, which more or less became quite popular nowadays. I wish you all the best, and thank you for listening.